Good morning. My name is Joseph Puente. I am Jess's youngest son. My sister Christine is the baby. She couldn't be here today, but she did join us remotely earlier. I didn't prepare anything specific. As we were driving up today, I was just writing down just the things that came to mind when I think of Dad. And the first thing I thought of was his green thumb. And Dad had this, it seems paradoxical. He could be such an intimidating person, and yet he was so nurturing. When we, the first ward that we belonged to when we joined the church was the Oakhurst ward in California. And at the time, the church would hire a custodian. Today we all participate, we all pitch in and volunteer to clean the chapel. Back then, they hired Dad. And Dad didn't just clean the church, though. He also took care of the grounds, the landscaping and everything. And those grounds were just so beautiful. And I remember again thinking, about this loud Spanish man with a temper. So intimidating, but always looking through flower catalogs and buying flower bulbs through the mail to plant them at our house, of course, in the church. And when we moved from California to Utah, about a year later, we went back to visit, and the grounds weren't looking so good. And we didn't say anything, but the members there certainly did. Oh, we really miss your dad being here to take care of the grounds. It's not looking all that great. Another thing I thought of when thinking about Dad was that it was his fondness for puns. I remember when I was staying with him in central Utah, he saw me early one morning and he said, "Hey, the sun is up." If you ever played bingo with him, if they ever called B8, he'd always say, "Oh, good drink." He took a headboard, a metal headboard and a footboard, from the bed, planted it in the ground in the front yard of his house, planted flowers in it. Flower bed. It's in the video if you haven't seen it. Dad had that really thick Castilian accent, which got me in trouble when I took Spanish in high school and college because I was using the theta, pronouncing the things with that Spanish lisp. And of course, my teachers were like, "No, that's not how you say it." And I'd be like, "That's how you say it in Spain." That's how my family said it. I guess they thought I was being pretentious. It'd be like walking into an English class and then speaking with a British accent. Speaking of English, English was Dad's second language, which he spoke pretty well, I think, despite, the accent. His grammar wasn't always spot on, but he got, his points across for the most part. And but what I found really interesting was whenever he would write in English, he would use Spanish grammar. So I got a card from him once, and he wrote in the card, "Hope you're doing well." And he spelled doing D-U-E-N, which, if you pronounce it with Spanish, it's Duen. Yeah, that's what. Okay, yeah, I get it. I got that. That makes sense. Last night, as we were visiting, we were talking about, all the little idioms and limericks that Dad would say. I remember one of them, whenever we would ask Dad for something, he wouldn't, and he didn't want to do it. He would never just say no. He'd always say, "Ya ves que sí, pues no." Never could figure out what that meant exactly, but I got the no part. It was that other part, though, that in the beginning, it's like, yeah, okay, fine. And it was easy to make fun of the accent, too, of course, to impersonate Dad. Right in his truck, it's the invisible wall right here. Do not cross the invisible wall while I'm driving. Right there, the invisible wall. Hit your arm or something. I remember he got mad at me for something. I don't remember. Well, it could be anything. I wanted to invite a friend over to visit. And he was upset with me. He didn't want to let me have my friend come over for, I think it was a sleepover or something like that. And he starts just letting out this string of syllables that I just couldn't make out. And I think back, and what I remember is something to the effect of I'm not going to go down. Try and consider that. I can also credit Dad with the fact that the first word I ever spoke was a Spanish obscenity. I'm not going to say it here, of course. Remembering his temper now, of course, we think about it. One of his defining characteristics, but we do recall it now with some humor. I watched a film with my wife in which the main character's father passed away, and the father was just kind of a bitter old guy. And when she spoke at his funeral, she said, "Raise your hand if my dad has ever offended you." And when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, I think she just wrote Dad's eulogy right there. I'm not going to ask anyone to raise your hand, but everyone takes offense over whatever. But when I think about that, it just reminds me that what you saw was what you got with Dad. He was pretty genuine, warts and all, as they say, and while maybe socially it was uncouth, it was still Dad, and it gave me an appreciation and a need to be honest in the way I deal with people. And it also reminds me that our fallibility is the great equalizer. That no matter how we might present ourselves or whatever stations we might have in life, whether it is in the community, in church, it's like we still all have our flaws. Those of us who are LDS, we hear these stories sometimes about people who are called to positions in the church, anywhere from bishop to state president to someone in the general authorities. And whenever someone talks to the families, they are all saying the same thing. He's the last person on earth I would have thought would have been called to be a general authority, because they know his flaws. But while some people might be discouraged by it, I find it reassuring. Because it reminds us that we need to be forgiving. And thinking about maybe mistakes Dad has made, or times that he's hurt any of us, or all of us. I know I've learned to forgive, because when I think of the life that he lived before I even came into this world, any of us, everything that he went through, he did nothing to have to endure that. He went through experiences and pain that nobody should have to go through to witness things that no child should ever have to witness. To have to give up your childhood to go to work to take care of your family. Those are things, thank God, we didn't have to do, but Dad did. And we're grateful to him for that. At the same time, it's frustrating because it made it difficult for him to relate to us as kids, because he had to give up being a kid so early. So it was difficult for him to remember. The church has made also a wonderful difference in his life. I look back over the years, we've been members since 1983. And while, there are some things about Dad that never changed, he did progress quite a bit in these last 30 years. He changed a lot. He became more gentle and more loving. And while he and I have always had difficulty connecting and understanding each other, because we had a few things going against us, we had this kind of a language barrier. We had more than a generation gap. I was part of his second family. We had a double generation gap between us. And on top of that, there was a culture gap. Because even though Dad was always strong to say, I am an American, I was born in this country, he was still raised in Spain. Yes, legally, on paper, he's an American citizen. Culturally, he's a Spaniard. So that presented a challenge to relate to him. But as members of the church, though, and growing up, we both became priesthood holders. And it was interesting to relate to him within that context. I remember taking a road trip with him. I was in the Navy at the time. I was on leave, and we were going to visit my sister, and we were having a spiritual conversation. And I just remember thinking how grateful I was to be able to relate to my dad like this, because it was so difficult to relate to him in other ways. Part of me over the years I felt kind of jealous of my older siblings. I thought they had a closer relationship with Dad, because Dad was always singing their praises. He was always saying these wonderful things about Adele and Ed and Beck and all these things, and I felt I felt bad about that. I felt like I didn't measure up. And a few years ago, I saw Ed for Christmas when he was up there. We hadn't seen each other in probably 20 years. And he related the story about how he and his friend Billy, who he grew up with, had gone to visit Dad. And Dad pulled out this novelty can of, was it like roasted grasshoppers or something? He'd had that can for probably 50, 60 years. Always brought it out at dinner parties to say, this is what we'll be having later, Which is, I guess, an advantage for Dad, having multiple families who could recycle those jokes over generations. Anyways, he takes this can and he gives it to Billy. And hearing Ed talk about this, he's like, he gave it to Billy. I'm his son. We were in the house there. And Ed, when I heard you telling that story, I thought to myself, I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so it's not just me. We're all struggling with this relationship with Dad. It's like, he doesn't play favorites. It's like in his eyes, we're all equally indifferent, I guess. In that moment, Ed, it's like because of time and distance, we've never been that close. But in that moment, I never felt closer to you as a brother. I've made sure in the last couple of years that every time I talked to Dad on the phone, that the last thing I said was, "I love you." The last couple of times I talked to him on the phone, he couldn't talk back. But it's within the last year that for the first time he had said to me, "Joe, I'm proud of you." We see these father-son tropes in movies and pop culture. But they work because they're real. I'm very grateful for the man that raised me, took care of me in his own peculiar way. I'm going to miss him. But I'm glad he's finally resting. Because he's been working nonstop for a very long time. And I'm looking forward to seeing him again. As he sings in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.